But basically, what happened was like I think a week ago, maybe like a few days ago, where there's this big story of like a woman in China who was treated poorly by the staff in Louis Vuitton when she went in there to buy clothes. So in an act of revenge, she returned at a later date and she brought a large bag containing 600,000 yuan, and they had to like count it. She like pretended to pay for something, I think. And they had to count these notes one by one. And after they finished counting, she just left. Which is hilarious. That's absolutely hilarious that like she was
Yeah,
plotting and planning on how to get revenge on these staff members that treated her badly and eventually got back at them. But why I thought this was an interesting story is I wanted to open a wider conversation around kind of like luxury stores and customer service and kind of this weird thing that luxury brands do where for a lot of brands it's kind of embedded into their marketing to kind of treat customers badly because it kind of makes people want things more. It's kind of strange. You treat people badly and then they want to prove to you that they can afford something or buy something instead of just leave. Um, and like me personally, that's why I don't shop in luxury stores because I it's not the greatest experience for me. I like to shop in stores like the allotment store or like different consignment stores. I've always been that person rather than a person that goes into luxury stores and buys stuff. But what do you guys think?
I guess I'll go. I think like it's just like a general problem with like the fact that you're dealing with like these high ticket items where you got a lot of curious customers wanting to like have the store experience, and then like they never buy anything. And like there's the idea that like, on one level, that's not what you're there to do. You're there to be the face of the brand. These customers might go online later where they're more comfortable or like have done more research and like actually buy something. But like it it doesn't necessarily reflect on like how they treat their big spenders versus people who spend nothing. Like these are human beings. They can have bad days. They can be more snippy at the end of the day or what have you. I have a personal anecdote about a friend of mine who was actually a fashion major in school and was interested in like developing knitwear and such. And then he like went to like the Versace store and he had such a bad experience with like a snooty essay there that like he like switched his career around, got out of fashion because like he realized he would have to deal with people who are uh, like I
Damn.
guess aligned poorly with customer service in the future, and like the fact that like there's no way a brand could like actually control how like down to the essay level like how they treat people all the time just due to the fact of like it being a very difficult to control situation in retail that he switched out of it completely, and now it's a happy end because he works at Goldman Sachs and it's fine. But he still got out of the fashion game, and he was really into the idea of like getting into knitwear and exploring like different ways of fabrication of knitwear and everything. And we lost him due to this bad technical service. He wasn't just lost as a customer for Versace. He was completely disillusioned with the industry.
Me, but
Damn.
except I just get paid a shit wage.
so so I find this like I had a feeling where you were gonna go, but I wanted to hear generally where you wanted to go I with this. And I do find this to be a big deal. This is a clapback because usually when you hear these stories about being mistreated, people start spending loads and
They
loads
do
of money at the
to like
store
prove
just to
themselves,
prove
which
that
is
I'm rich enough
kind
to
of counterproductive.
exactly right. But this woman did exactly what I probably would have done. It was a bit, it was very petty, not even just a bit, but it's also indicative of what's happening with the lawsuits, with all of these luxury companies as well, right? Which is customers aren't taking this anymore. Like they're generally not gonna take this lying down and they're gonna bring the sales, at least that part portion of the business part down, because post pandemic people like being outside and they like a great shopping experience, right? And with these luxury companies, when you realize how important human interaction is, these customers are saying that these luxury companies aren't meeting the bar anymore, and we need them to meet the bar. And as much as you can't control every single store, great management should allow you to be able to control these particular spaces where your products are in, because more often than not, they don't have like tens of thousands of stores, because they're not any old retailer. They're in specific locations around the world, right? So generally, they should be able to
Mhm.
have a way that the employee should act, right? And just my final point, like as a stylist, when I'm working with these items in terms of the price point where it's very expensive for certain customers, right? You don't necessarily say, "Oh yeah, go over there, go over to do this is over there," and convince them to buy. Of course, there's some people that think that they can try to do that, but when it's an important purchase for a customer, one thing that I've always noticed is that you want them to be endeared to the thing that they're buying, rather than caring about what you think that they should think. So
Mm.
giving your opinion is only something that you wish that they can give you, rather than anything else. But I say all of that to say that it's important as a sales associate or a stylist, or someone that is more of a concierge, right? Which is the type of role that you take up on, that you're more so consulting the customer rather than treating them like, the dirt on the bottom of your shoe, really and truly. And I think that's what this sales associate position is going to evolve into. People are going to be paid a little bit more, so you're not going to get very, very young people. And it's going to be an important position in terms of dealing with customers, rather than, the position that is full of now, where it's like, oh, this anyone that really wants a retail job can kind of just get it, as long as like you're above a certain age bracket and you have this amount of experience selling high ticket items.
So
Mm.
I agree, but also in the context of LV, I think Louis Vuitton stores are like the Walmart of luxury stores. Because you go in and they literally go, "What do you want to buy?" And they go, "Oh yeah, you can have that one, but you can only buy one with the canvas, and then we're blocking you to buy any other bags, and you can only then buy leather bags." And it's like they don't give you any information. They just
Mm.
go, "You want it? Okay, I'll give it to you, but I'm gonna limit you." It's just so bad. And then like I'm just using today as an example, right? Because I've been shopping. Um, like I went into Moschino, and I'm interested in Moschino at the moment, but the customer service, because they're not hugely busy, they were like, "Let me talk to you about the collection," because they've got time to think about like what the collection's about, what they've got staff training. Whilst LV, you can literally just like, if you work at Selfridges, you can apply for an LV job within a year.
Right.
And like if you want to work for Hermes, you're probably looking at 4 years, 5 years minimum. And same with Loewe. Loewe have become really prestigious with their like applicants and stuff, especially if you want to work for like a
Wait,
like
applicants for what? Sorry,
like
work.
to become an SA. Yeah,
Oh, okay, yes.
just I think like in the context of LV for this customer, I think their service is actually shit. You may as well
Yeah.
just buy it online.
Also, the luxury bucket list. This is an insane story. I knew a girl in 2008 spent 11.5K at Hermes to get a chance at a Birkin. They laughed in her face. That stuck with me because at the time that was a lot of money to me, and she was insulted and denied. I mean, even if this is what I don't understand about the customer service. Even if like you're still not going to give the person the allocation, to laugh in someone's face is just so insane.
Just
It's
like to
just
be.
so insane and so unnecessary.
That was an accident. So, but yeah. Can you put that back up? What happened? What was it that happened?
Oh, the story.
2008. They laughed at her face.
Yeah,
Why did they laugh at her face?
because they weren't going to give her the allocation, I guess. even though
Okay,
she spent a lot of money.
that's crazy.
It's strange. It's strange. It's really strange.
But yeah, like I do believe these places are generally gonna have to change, and I want the customer to force them to change.
Yeah,
And
I
this is the
agree.
thing, right? We're forcing a company to change so we can spend money with them, right? Me personally, I believe in the power of withholding the dollar, or your currency, your funds. I know there's not a lot of people that are of that same mentality, but me, when it comes to in quotes boycott, I never really call it a boycott because like, you know, anyone that says they're boycotting stuff and they don't know how much you have to boycott to boycott it. But I
Mm-hmm.
digress.
But I
Uh,
can see why clients are going in store to like try
I
stuff on and
digress.
then buying it online.
I
That's what
think
I
it.
was about to say,
I
because I was gonna
I
say,
think it's important. Yeah, let me just finish the point. Like, I just think it's important for um the places to change, but then more so us withholding certain consumer bases, not saying all consumers, but certain consumer bases to withhold their spending with certain places, especially of those who aren't part of the 0.1%.
Michael, what are you going to say?
no, I was just gonna touch on, and I mean, we all know it, but I just think no one happened to mention it. Is that the tricky part? And the thing that's easy to forget that, like, no matter how rubbish the customer service experience is, what all of these brick and mortar stores have tied to them is the fact that, you know, they actually have the garment inside. And like someone like me, if I have the option to go and feel something and try something on in person, I will always take that over, you know, just guessing online. Some people are a lot more comfortable ordering things online than maybe I am. I love to be able to go in, feel it, try it on, see if it's the right size, see if it fits how I want, blah, 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 blah. So it's like, if I want to do that, even if I know the place like has shit sales associates or whatever, it's either I do that or I maybe just don't buy the piece altogether. So I guess it just depends on how much you like what you're considering as well. But yeah, the fact that they actually have the garments or the shoes or whatever, the jewelry in there is the main reason that we're going there in the first place. You know what I mean?
Well, I actually really agree with you, Micah, because like I'm going to use Moschino for an example again, but I have bought quite a bit of Moschino since the new collections come out, and I had bought it all online and it hadn't arrived, and then I emailed the London store being like, "Hi, I'm worried this isn't going to fit me," and they had every piece that I bought online, and they were like, "Oh, we'll just redirect the sale to London." And then I went in today to try everything on, and I am so fucking glad I did, because stuff that I was like, that's definitely going to fit, didn't fit. And the stuff that I didn't think was going to fit did fit. And it was like a really weird experience. I mean, it's also down to like sizing, but it was such a new experience for me because normally I'm really good with sizing. And they were like, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll get you a smaller size. Like, don't worry about it. Like, we'll just cancel that off the order." Like, it's like those sort of levels of service are just different. Do you know what I mean? You can't get that online.
Yeah, like I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't necessarily promote shopping online fairly. But I would say in terms of the value of that, because I think what you're saying is really important thing. Because when I'm serving people, or when I was serving people in terms of like just styling, it's like knowing, especially when you're guys, right? It's like knowing the chest measurement, knowing the hip measurement or the ab measurement, the waist measurement, everything included, and you know the drop, how do you like your trousers legs to drop, the circumference of the thigh, all of the measurements, just to say that should be on file in terms of the value of the customer. Obviously bodies change and everything like that, but being able to deal with the customer correctly, like just from the sales side, it should be more valued, especially when someone is spending in excess of 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. It shouldn't only be reserved for those people that spend 100Ks and 20K couture pieces. Like, it's just, it doesn't make sense to me, because when you want lifelong customers, you don't act like that. But for some reason, when it comes to regular middle class people that are shopping in these places, they seem to treat them like, we can get you a dime a dozen, when in reality they hold things together sometimes.
Another dimension that I want to bring up is that recently we've discussed this trend of like hyper luxury, where like instead of just like a 3K coat, it's a 6K coat. And the 6K coats aren't in the stores because they're made to order and you don't know what they look like. You don't know what the sizing's like. The SA won't even show you the catalog for the item unless you're one of these high value customers that they have. So the value of going into the store is diminished not only by obviously the bad customer experience of being like, oh, I can't even see that, I can't even try that on. But like it seems to be like the natural way that these that the new executives are taking the direction of these hyper luxurious items is that no, you can't see them, no, you can't touch them, these are not for you. And that's I think like a big reason why, like for instance, the new Gucci is failing is because they pivoted entirely the Sabato collections for those customers. So the extent that even if you want to see like one of those like scarf accessories from Sabato's work, you can't. You only see like the leftover Michele designs or like their general collections in the stores. You can't try any of the new stuff on. It's no wonder that none of his new designs are selling that good because none of it is in the stores.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. It felt really sort of depressing walking past Gucci today, because I was like, wow, there's no excitement there. It feels very stale, and like you said, it's like those core pieces is all I saw.
Was that the Bond
Um,
Street store?
yeah,
Right.
but I think it's a weird time.
Yeah, I do think this might be an inflection point for retail in general. I think, and I do believe this is a really important conversation, because I don't when it comes to this, it's not necessarily about just diverting your dollars, because even the newer spaces don't have great customer services. So I don't want to call out any names, but anyone that is selling an item for over £300, that is a new brand in the past 5 years, some of these places don't have the best customer service, and they like to act like, oh, we finally made it because we have all of these sales, or we're connected to X celebrity over here, blah 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 blah. So we're adding, we can now act like douches to the customer, when it's like, whoa,
But do
like
you know what's funny? I think
that's
it's
not how it works.
indicative of like the fashion industry in general and
Mm,
how people that work for brands don't do what's in the best interest for the brand, and it confuses me into my core. Like I'm sure Finn, you've been through this, Michael probably the same thing, where like I will email the PR for a brand and say, "Oh, this is what I do. I'd love if I can get an opportunity to like interview the designer." And
mm,
the PR will literally respond with, "Oh, the designer said they're busy, but the designer sends their regards." And then the next day, I might get a personal email from the actual designer themselves being like, "Oh, sorry, I just saw the message. I'm actually available, to let me know when you can do the interview," which means that the PR person didn't actually ask the designer. It was when the designer saw who it was and maybe they knew who I was that they're like, "Oh, actually, no, I'd love to do an interview." So the PR is not even doing what the designer would do or would want to do. So they're not even acting in the best interest of the person that they're working for. Um, and that's what fashion essays remind me of. They just like do whatever they want to do because their personal ego or because they think you don't
Gatekeeping.
deserve an interview with the
yeah.
designer, even though the designer would want it. They're not acting in the best interest of who
Yeah.
they're working for. It's
and
insane.
they and they talk to people based on how this person is dressed sometimes, and I think that's the
Right,
majority of the time sometimes, right? And
right.
I'll tell you now, I someone who owns, let's say, a global company that, like, personally, right, and someone that's like a very, very major accountant for very big banks, I don't know, they both dress dull. They're both dull dressers,
Mhm.
right? And this is the thing: if they ended up walking into a Gucci, Balenciaga, I can already tell how they're gonna be treated because they just dress dull. Unless you saw the GMT master poking out of their, out of their wrist from the cuff of their shirt, you're probably gonna treat them like, the arse end of, yeah, not to swear, but yeah, dirt on the bottom of your shoe. It's like, yo, this person, this person's not just that this person's important, but this person can afford to be in here and should be allowed to be in here, even if they're just browsing fairly. Like, all service generally is good service, but in as in like customers coming into the store. So yeah, I don't really value that.
Demi, you're
that
right. Like, my stepmom, who I don't like, so I'm not trying to flex, has like doesn't dress up. I think she dresses like shit, right? She doesn't spend money on clothes. She might wear COS. That's like her COS is her nice clothes, right? But she has. Yeah, but I like COS as well. I just meant like that's her like going out clothes. Do you know what I mean? Like there is no level above that, which is absolutely fine.
Damn.
But she has quite a lot of money. She invests it and whatever. And she went into a department store and then she was like treated like shit in a certain designer boutique. And I was like, cool, like that just happens, like whatever. And then I said, did you have a handbag? And she was like, no, I was wearing the clothes I was wearing on the farm. And I was like, well, that's why you got treated like shit. And then a week later, she went back in with the same clothes, but she brought her Dior bag. And they asked if she wanted to sit in the VIP seat, in the VIP room.
Mm.
wow.
Because she had an expensive bag. And it was like a rare Dior bag.
But it's do you know what it is though? It's weird that you have to play that game because like what if someone is wearing something that's even more expensive but the essays just don't know what it is? What if it's like a Nadine Gosson bracelet that costs, I don't know, it cost them like 80K or some shit.
Yeah.
Like
But what if some people, sorry, some of these guys don't even know what Loro Piana is. What if I'm wearing a Loro Piana cashmere sweater and you just think it's a regular cashmere
I
sweater?
just think that the process of profiling people is weird. It personally, if I work somewhere, I'm gonna treat everyone the same way, even if people are just browsing or they're not going to buy anything. And the stores that I buy the most from are actually stores where the customer service is like that. They treat everyone the same way. Like they're really trying to like tell people stuff and give people information whether they're going to buy something or not.
Well, the issue is that like the industry is still structured in a way where the essays are basically sales positions, right? But what they really are in the age of like where the brand is mostly deals in online commerce and in wholesale commerce to like Essence or Neiman Marcus or wherever, is that the essays are actually the front of house of marketing, and unless you have the essays buying into the idea that that they are marketing stakeholders, and there's and as long as their compensation is based off of commission, you literally will not see a change in behavior. Like they don't have any fiscal reason to change their behavior. They don't have any corporate reason to change their behavior because that's just not how their compensation is structured.
I
That's
agree.
interesting. I just think like just back to one of the points I was making earlier. I just think if new brands adopt this way, then they're not really gonna grow as efficiently or as well as they think that they should, right? Because when you're competing with these major luxury brands, it's all the ancillary things that are important, right? So the way you remember certain customers' names and customers that aren't your clients, and the way that the sales associate, because you've got to think that this sales associate for a lot of these people, especially if you're a new brand, is their first time interacting with your brand. or
Mhm.
let's not say the first time, but maybe the third time, but they're just walking down the road to your next or inside the department store, and your stall is right next to, or down the way from X luxury brand. So now this sales associate is representative of your brand, and they are just having a terrible day. But it's not in your script for them to be actually cheerful and nice. So now you have a terrible person that gave a terrible impression, that now this person has a bad taste in their mouth about the brand. So yeah, but
I
yeah. I'm
agree.
gonna
I
be
think
designing the urban totes, by the way. It's dropping soon.
I do think that a lot of stores are just out of touch, and but the SA thing, like especially in the UK and in Europe, we can't really talk about America because America's economy is a lot better than Europe right now. Many places in Europe, but like in the UK, an average sales assistant gets 28k plus commission, right? If you work in a luxury brand, maybe a bit more if you've got more experience, but 28k is below the national average, and especially in the cities that these luxury stores tend to be. A lot of people not struggle because that's like wankerish, but like you're not exactly living the high life.
Yeah, you're
And
living regular.
Considering to be in those roles, you need like prior retail experience for a bit as well. They're not like
exactly.
Yeah,
entry
and
level jobs. Yeah.
plus there's central tax. Like these luxury brands are in central city of London, and it's
Yeah.
expensive to travel there and eat there and do best of. So it's like, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
important.
the pay is asked before commission.
As someone friends with a former SA, the pay is asked before commission. That means obviously they need to change the pay structure, but obviously brands won't do that because
To be fair, the one that I do know has done it is Balenciaga.
Okay, what's the pay structure like now?
So a lot more people earn around 35k basic, which is nice, is good. And then what they do is they do a group commission, but the group commission is target led. So if you don't hit the target, you don't get commission. Which in some people argue that's wankerish because you might have somebody that's like the best sales associate and gets the majority of the sales and therefore should be paid for that. But then there's also this argument that if you work as a team and then the commission tends to be higher than what you would get if you were to be on your own.
Mhm.
And I was talking to people that I know from like Balenciaga, and they come out with like 45k, which is good, but not a lot of brands is like. Obviously, this is the UK. There's not the same parameters than in America, but like people would beg for that money. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think there is some stores that are doing better, but there's also a lot of brands that are like still paying people. And I remember when I was in retail, which is over 10, like nearly 10 years ago now, 8 years ago, I was working for a shoe brand, and they said if you don't make commission, what did they say? Basically, they justified you having a lower minimum wage.
Damn.
Wow.
Because they were like, we're going to pay you less because we know you're going to get commission, and therefore you top up your wage with your commission, and then anything you earn over that with commission you get as extra. And this was probably like 7, 8 years ago.
How American.
Yeah.
What these brands forget is that that kind of commission-led structure actually does breed a lot of animosity in the team as well, because like
Yes.
the people fight over clients and stuff. Like I was in this store the other day, just on a casual thing. Like I was looking at perfume and whatnot, blah blah blah, and there is someone I normally regularly speak to in that store, I guess, but he wasn't there, and I didn't really care because I was just there to browse. So I was just speaking with someone else from a different SA, and we really got along, blah 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 blah. And I was like, oh yeah, like, and can I have your number? Blah 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 blah. And I might buy this as well. And right away she was like, oh, make sure you go to your, like, don't buy it from me. Make sure you go to a regular person. And she was scared. And I was like, oh, is it a big deal here? And she was like, yeah, not gonna lie, people get really funny about that kind of thing. Blah 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 blah. And in the end, anyway, I didn't buy anything that day, but I might not go back now, not out of spite, but it just like might not happen because I was just in the area. And that means that now the store in general is making less revenue and less commission because people were fighting over who's going to get the commission. When in reality, if it was like some sort of group thing, like Finn had said, then it would have been fine. I would have just bought something that day. So
Yeah,
Sometimes
like,
I ask if it's
that's
group commission or
happened.
not.
Oh wait,
Sorry,
so-
go on, Dami.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say like just to like buttress with your point. There was a story that I know. I don't know this person as well, whereby they were really popular. In this is Harrods, so I think you know already who I'm talking about. But they were really popular, and they ended up
Yep.
with celebrities and everything like that, and they got like a lot of resentment was thrown their way based on other sales associates because they personally were doing really really well to the point where people were bullying them and just a bunch of microaggressions as a person of color. But yeah, it was just a really terrible experience for them to the point where they left, a really good, well-paying job based on, the treatment of other sales associates, like with a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, like that doesn't really help, does it? So yeah, but Finn.
No, just I was just saying that I asked essays now if it's group commission or individual, especially if I'm going in store, because sometimes, like, if I like somebody, it just means that I'll like, if I'm going to go to that store often, then I don't care who I speak to if it's group commission, then, or if it's not, I'll always speak to the person normally I have the best relationship with, like Dover Street's group commission, things like that. So I have like multiple relationships, so it doesn't really matter. And then the last point I wanted to make was Nectarine. Because I made a comment about using commission to fulfill minimum wage. Basically, if you didn't meet commission, then obviously they have to pay you the minimum wage, but then you're not going to have a job for very long because you're not making commission, which means you're not making sales. So that was my point.
This YouTube channel runs on your support. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You'll gain access to exclusive content that includes everything from my Patreon podcast, where I give a behind-the-scenes insight into the fashion industry, as well as a fashion book club, where I review my favorite fashion books. You can also check out my fashion ebook, which highlights the best fashion journalists to follow, definitions of common fashion terminology, and how to determine what a good source of fashion information is. The links to everything are in the description below.